Hello, welcome to another video of 325 Radio, an English video that's in my English content playlist. This is a counterpart of the same topic. I made a video of the same topic, which has to do with using landline telephone and how to hook it up to your mixer to make phone calls, interviews, to bring call-ins on the air. And it's a method of communication that is very popular on the radio. I mean, radio use this kind of communication since pretty much ever. So it's the oldest and the most maybe stable communication you can get for your interviews or your remote phone calls. Now I make this video in English because I think the topic is quite interesting. Many people is looking for information about this, and I want to make it the more complete I can for the international viewers, for viewers that don't understand Spanish but they can manage English well. Why would you want to use telephone? Well, for broadcasting purposes, that is radio, whether terrestrial radio or online radio or even podcasting, you can get a very good audio quality out of your landline telephone. You can get a more stable communication because with cell phones and Skype, which is most people begin to use because it's cheap, and I will mention why it's cheap. What happens with Skype? Well, Skype uses internet, as you know, and maybe your internet connection sometimes is not too stable. You can lose the communication, or even the Skype servers might be overloaded, and there's a point where every one of us has experimented that the other person sounds like kind of a robotic voice, or it sounds at times too thin or too hollow, and well, it's not very stable. The same happens with cell phones. You might suffer from a lost signal in your cell phone from your cell phone company, and in 5 or 10 seconds of signal loss, the communication could be interrupted. Now, telephones are more stable. The thing with telephones is that the audio telephone behaves very different with audio in Skype and cell phones. You may see that a cell phone have a port of 3.5 millimeter in the cell phone that can carry audio into the phone and out of the phone. And if you have your Skype installed in a laptop, in the laptop you will find two ports, 3.5 millimeters, which is an input and an output. So you can a lot of routing capacities with those kind of setups. If you find the right cables and the right cables to connect those devices to your mixer, you can effectively manipulate the audio in Skype and in the cell phone. In audio landline telephone, things are a bit different. Why? Because by default, a regular audio analog cable is made for carrying one single signal from an output to an input. Okay? Telephones carry two simultaneous signals, which is you in this side and the person in the other side, through a one single cable, which is the cable that you hook up to the back of the unit of the telephone set, the cable that comes out from the wall, the RJ11 cable. That cable is certainly not an audio cable, it's a telephone audio cable. This is the moment where this kind of devices come into the scene. This is called telephone hybrid. This is an audio telephone interface that you may hear it named as a telephone hybrid, a phone patch, maybe TBU, which means telephone balance unit. And in practice, what these kind of devices are supposed to do is to separate both ends of landline telephone conversations effectively, so that Number one, you have an output of the caller that could be connected to a free channel of your mixer so that only the caller could be heard in that channel. And number two, you can effectively could be able to send audio to the hybrid from your mixer so that the person in the other end of the telephone can hear you through his or her handset, and they can hear you through the microphones, okay, in your radio show or podcasts. Now, there are different categories of hybrids. Number one, you can find passive and active hybrids. Passive hybrids don't require power supply in order to operate. They take the energy from the telephone cable and that's it. They usually don't have a gain control for the volume of the caller and the volume that you will send to the caller. So in that case, you have to rely on your mixer, and that your mixer will have the proper volumes and the gain range enough for a good quality audio conversation. They usually are not the best options for the separation. The separation is measured in dB, so I will mention in a minute which is the regular separation and the best case separations regarding the model or the type of hybrid you buy. The other category is active hybrid, such as this, because it requires power supply like this one. They are active, so they have dedicated volume controls. In passive hybrids, you may find actually some volume controls, but since they don't have electrical power, those controls are not very rangy in terms of how much range of dB you can control from the phone and to the phone. But active hybrids, they can maybe have a circuitry like a little preamp, so you have a more range of dB to control the caller volume and the audio you send to the caller. Now, analog hybrids is another category, analog versus digital hybrids. Analog hybrids are very good at separating both ends of the conversation. Some of them don't. And this is a lottery, because the real problem that the hybrids must fight against landline telephones is that landline telephones usually don't recognize and don't balance very well the frequency and impedance of the audio of the phone communication. So in a typical low price range or mid price range hybrid, the separation would be around 20 dB between one end and another, maybe 30 dB. Some of the hybrids don't make a good job at cancelling and separating the audio you send. I mean, in other words, you send your audio to the phone line, the audio you send travels around the phone line, gets back to the hybrid in the caller's channel, and it gets into the channel of your mixer. So in practice, when you are making an interview and the person in the other end is talking, no problem. The problem is when you speak into the microphone to ask a question or to make a comment, and that signal comes back into the channel of the caller. The result, your voice will sound much louder than normal. It may sound distorted, it may sound muddy, and in the worst case, it may sound with phasing issues. And that will cause that your voice will sound super hollow or super thin. To fight against this unpleasant effect, most of analog hybrids come with a control called null. And this is to optimize the separation so that you don't get that feedback in the communication. Now let's talk about digital hybrids. This is a digital hybrid. They come with a circuitry called DSP, Digital Signal Processing. which automatically detects the frequency and the characteristics of both ends of the conversation, and it pushes separation between 50 and even 60 dB. That's a lot, that's great, and that's the best scenario because you won't have any feedback issues or any intermission between the two signals. The separation is the best. And since that is so effective, you don't have, or you won't find in any digital hybrid, the null control. So let's bring the hybrid. This particular hybrid is of the brand JK Audio, and the model is broadcast host, and as you can see, it's a digital hybrid. I will place it near the mixer, and I will place the telephone so we can hook it up. Okay, you see here the back of the unit. This is an active hybrid, so I have to hook up the power supply here. Now you find the first section is the telephone port section. Line is number 1, phone is the number 2. What you're gonna hook up in the line port is the cable that comes from the wall that you typically would connect it to the back of your telephone set. No, here you can connect this into the line port of your hybrid. The second telephone connection is the one that actually will go to your telephone set. So where it says phone, you hook up an RJ11 regular cable here, and in the other end, let me move the camera, you'll find the other end of the cable into the back of your telephone. So now your telephone works normally. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go to the audio section. Now there are hybrids that comes with XLR ports such as this. Other hybrids are made with 1/4 inch jacks, some hybrids with RCA. Well, in this case, you may want to know exactly the ports that are involved so that you can buy or get the right cables in order to hook them up, okay? So number 1, here it says caller, and here it says send. This particular model labeled the input and output as caller and send. Some hybrids call them send and receive, in or out. Well, this is called caller. Caller is the audio that comes from the phone, the person on the other end, and you need in one end a female XLR cable. Let's hook it up. And in the other end, that cable is a 1/4 inch jack. And I will connect it to channel, in my case, channel 5, which is the one I have available. I labeled already here, it says phone. So the caller is on channel 5. You have a control knob in the front of the unit, which says, as the back labeled, caller. So I place it always in the middle. I can adjust if I hear it very low. I can adjust it way up. If I hear the caller volume very loud, I just turn it a bit down, but I leave it in the middle so that I have a bit of range of control from my mixer as well. So let's see the audio involved that sends audio from our mixer to the caller. You will need an auxiliary send of your mixer. Auxiliary is a pipeline in horizontal position that allows you to get portions of audio of every channel and send it to an output. I have two auxiliary in my mixer. This auxiliary 1 is this horizontal line, and auxiliary 2 is this horizontal line. Number 1 I have already in use. I have it already in use for Skype, so I have free the number 2, which I already label as send telephone. So the auxiliary 2 has a physical output there, which is the one that says send, aux send. Number 2 is the one free, is a 1/4 inch connector. So I will plug my cable that is 1/4 inch on one end. The other end of the cable is a male XLR, okay, male XLR port. So I connect it to the send one, or to the send port. Now, in order to get the caller to hear my microphones and everything in the mixer, the only thing I have to do is to watch the auxiliary 2 individual controls in every channel, and to, as you can see, just turn it a bit up, not too much because it will sound distorted or very loud. So let's say maybe a 1/4, a bit more. Microphone 1, 2, 3, and I have 4 microphones. And this is the secret of this mix, which is called mix minus. You can send to the caller whatever you want. The only thing you won't send to the caller is its own audio. Channel 5, as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is the audio from the caller. You don't want to send him his own voice because he's already present on the line, and he doesn't want to hear himself back with a tremendous amount of echo and feedback. So turn up the volume in every channel you want to send him to listen, but don't send him his own voice. Okay? So that's it. You control that with every knob of auxiliary, and if your mixer like mine have auxiliary 1 and 2 general controls, well, turn up the general 2, in my case general 2, a bit, like the microphones, 1/4, a bit more. But yeah, make sure it's up, because no matter how loud you send the individual channels signals, if you have the general send to all the way down, they won't hear anything. So adjust the general auxiliary that you are sending right in the pretty much the same amount of gain as the microphones. Now in the front of the hybrid, you have, as I mentioned, the send 1, and I have it like in the color in the middle, so that I can have a room of control with my mixer. But again, if they hear you very low, turn up the send up. If they hear you very loud, turn it down. The last control you need to know about this hybrid is how to transfer a phone call from the telephone set to the hybrid. So whether you place a call or someone called you, while the person is here waiting, you transfer the call by pressing what in this model is called call. So you can hang up the phone, and now the phone call is here in the hybrid, ready to be brought up in the air. When the interview is done, you just press the drop button and you just hang up the phone. Some hybrids, in this case, there are 2 separate buttons, but in some hybrid, most of them, they have just one single button switch, which you can press it in or press it out, and you transfer the call or not. So if you have a one switch in and out hybrid, when you press it in, you transfer the call from the set to the hybrid, and when you press it out, you hang up the phone call. Well, hope you like the video. I try to push my English at best. If you like the video, give a thumb up, subscribe my channel. You can see English content in a playlist dedicated to English content videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.
Ahora, Diego, te hago una consulta. ¿Puede ser que mucha gente tenga un concepto de la Recoleta, a ver si se quiere el término museo?
Sí, mucha gente piensa que es un museo, sí. No sé si tanto el local, pero muchos extranjeros cuando vienen piensan que es un museo por la gran cantidad de obras de arte, y se sorprenden muchísimo cuando ven